Welcome to an installment of Apocalyptic April. I'm going to be reviewing 3 films that were made in the 1980s during the Cold War that foretold or forewarned of the consequences of nuclear war. And you may be saying to yourself, gee, Sean, that's a very cheery subject for a series of movie reviews. Well, when I look around and I see current events, I see things aren't much better now than they were during the Cold War. So my hope is that if history does repeat itself, things will warm up and peace will be returning to the world so these films can remain fiction. Enjoy. Hey everybody, Sean from Movie Assault here, and it's time once again for another review. This time out, it is When the Wind Blows from 1986. This is an animated film that was directed by Jimmy T. Murakami. You may know him as the director of Battle Beyond the Stars, and it's based on a graphic novel by Raymond Briggs, who also did The Snowman and was also responsible, at least in part, for the film The Snowman. This is a film that tells the story of an elderly couple named Jim and Hilda Bloggs, and they live in the countryside of Sussex, England. Jim's retired. He spends most of his time down at the public library reading newspapers, and Hilda putters around the house, dusting, cleaning, doing the wash, whatever needs to be done around the house. Neither one of them seems to be too concerned with current events until Jim comes home from the library very anxious about a possible impending war between Russia and the West. And he brings home a government-issued pamphlet about how to survive in a nuclear war. And it gives tips about how you're supposed to paint your windows white and how to build a lean-to out of doors from around the house and line it with cushions. And so he starts doing this as things seem to be escalating as they're listening on the radio. And Hilda doesn't seem to think that any of this stuff is necessary. She warns him not to use the fine cushions from the living room because he'll get them dirty. She's also making sure that he doesn't scrape the paint off the walls but when he leans the doors against them. So they maintain this sort of naivete about how serious things might actually be. And as they prepare, they start reminiscing about the nostalgia of the previous war, which was World War II. This film, of course, came out in the 80s, so 40 years prior was World War II. And of course, if you're familiar with history, you know that England survived the bombings, as Germany was constantly bombing London and other cities. And people banded together and hid together and worked through it. It was a very survivable situation, albeit still very scary. But Jim and Hilda are reminiscing about it like it was the best of times. They actually say it was kind of nice during the war, actually. So he builds this lean-to made of doors, makes all these preparations. He tries to get his son to do the same. He gave him a pamphlet. His son laughs at him, saying, when we all go, we're all going together," or something to that effect. And when the bombs do fall, Jim and Hilda survive. But they do so with the naive hope that the powers that be, with improved science and careful consideration of the consequences, they'll be sending emergency services soon. And at the very least, the newspaper will arrive shortly to tell them who won the war. We kind of follow them as their never-dwindling hope that help will arrive, or it's just a temporary situation, things are going to get better. And then they start noticing things like the grass isn't green anymore, and their lettuce in the garden has evaporated, and they don't hear any noise from around their surrounding area, except the lonely bark of a dog off in the distance who sounds awful. This really isn't an optimistic movie. It's animated, and it's definitely not for kids, but it does paint a very realistic picture of what would happen in the aftermath of a nuclear war. And it also paints a realistic picture of the idiocy of preparing to survive a nuclear war. Really, the lucky will be the dead. The vocal performances by John Mills as Jim Bloggs and Peggy Ashcroft as Hilda Bloggs are very lively and very emotional, and you can actually listen to the way that their hope sort of fades a little bit. They keep saying hopeful things, but their voices don't quite convey it as convincingly as the film goes on. But you can't help but ask yourself if they really believe the things that they're saying. Is the government really going to take care of them? Do they really think that? Or are they just saying that to make themselves feel better? And then you kind of realize how many other Jim and Hildas are there to kind of accept this type of a future, like the possibility that this could be the future. When the Wind Blows is not a film that I would watch again anytime soon or maybe ever, but I don't think I'm ever going to forget it. The imagery is unforgettable. The music, which was done by Roger Waters, David Bowie, and Genesis, to name a few, with the majority of it being done by Roger Waters, is haunting and sad and may sound a little dated, but you have to realize this is from the 80s and this is, when this was first creeping up our consciousness. I'm never going to forget this movie, though. There are scenes in this that will stick with me forever, and I don't want to spoil those. I want you to see them. So watch this movie. I give it a 9 out of 10. It may be a little talky, but that's the point. It's what they're saying and how they're saying it that's important, even as they view the surroundings around them. And you can watch it very easily. It is on Tubi. It is on Amazon Prime. It's on Fossum. So it's a very easy movie to find and stream. And I highly recommend it. But don't show it to your kids. That's all I can recommend. So there you go. That's my review of When the Wind Blows from 1986. I highly recommend it. 9 out of 10. Stay tuned for the next installment of Apocalyptic April, which will be coming next Sunday. Thanks for watching. Take it easy.